Okay, everybody, so we are going to create a one-point perspective art museum today, and I have put some artwork on there from artists that you have previously studied. So I've got my Jen Stark art right in the center. This is going to be kind of whatever you want, so I am going to allow you to choose this one, this one, this one, this one, or this one. I've just kind of created my own little artwork. I've got rainbows here, polka dots. This is a Van Gogh inspired one, and I have a Mondrian inspired one, and obviously Jen Stark in the center. The point of the project is to get the one-point perspective. So the five paintings are really going to be your choice as to what you put in them, and they don't have to be modeled after an artist that you've studied or that you particularly like, but if you want to, you can. And you're going to scale this up or down depending on your skill level. So if you want to get a little bit more complicated in the paintings and the portraits, this is where you're going to really show off your skills. But the point of this is more to get the perspective correct. Okay, so let's get our blank sheet of paper going. We're going to need a blank sheet of paper. We're going to need a ruler and a pencil and an eraser to start. All right. So the first thing we want to do is find the center of our paper. So I'm going to take, I have an 8.5 by 11 piece of paper and my 12-inch ruler. I'm going to start by going up to the top. I have an 11-inch paper here, and so half of 11 is going to be 5.5. So I find the 5.5 mark, and I mark it right there. Okay, so now I'm going to take my ruler, and I'm just going to draw a very faint, do not push down too hard with your pencil, a very faint line down the center, just very faintly. Remember, I'm trying to find dead center on the paper, so I do not want a line that I'm going to have to really struggle to erase, okay? Now I'm going to go over here to this side of the paper, all right, and I'm at 8.5. So half of 8.5 is 4.25. So here's my 4 mark, and I'm going to go to this line right here, and I'm just going to make a little mark, and then I'm going to cross it directly across here like this, very faintly, 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 faintly. And now I've created my 4 quadrants. Get this a little closer so that you can see it. Okay, and then I'm going to put my dot right in the center. So that is my 1-point perspective. All right, now we're going to start by drawing the back wall of the art project. So we're going to take this ruler, okay, we're going to go to the upper left-hand quadrant of my piece. Upper left-hand quadrant of my piece, okay. We're going to line it up again. We just did this on the other side. This time we're going to go to the 2. And I'm just going to draw a very faint line right there at the 2-inch mark. So I'm 2 inches down. And now I'm going to line my paper up. Okay. So my ruler is lined up with my 2-inch mark. Now that I'm here, I'm going to put a little bit of a line from the 4 to the 7. This is going to be my back wall, from the 4 all the way across to the 7. So that is the top of my back wall. And now I went from the 4 to the 7, and now I'm going to go from the start of my ruler down to this line right here, and I'm going to stop. Okay? From the top of that line all the way down to this line. And then I'm going to complete my box by going right through my 1 point there. Okay. So now I have my back wall. I'm going to go ahead and erase this fine line here because I do not need it. This is going to be where I have the Jen Stark piece. Okay. Now, the cool part about this project is we don't really have a ton of really precise measuring to do other than the portraits on the side. So I'm going to take my ruler and I'm going to go to the corner of my upper box and just draw straight up. It does not have to go to the corner of the paper. In fact, I don't really want it to go to the corner of the paper. This is a little bit of a skewed perspective, so we're going to give ourselves a little bit more width on the ceiling. So I go back up to the corner of my other side. Okay, I'm just going to eyeball it, really, and draw a line. And now I have my ceiling. So in my original, I have a checkerboard ceiling. I've already got this line here. So to do this, I'm going to go to my 1 point here and rotate my ruler. So I've got my point here. I now start, I skip this part, start here and go up. Rotate my ruler a little bit, making sure that I'm still on this point. Skip this part and go up. And I'm gonna rotate one more time. Skip this part and go up. Go back to center and do the exact same thing. So just kind of eyeballing it again. This is just a real easy way to do. Okay, now I have my ceiling drawn like that. And now I'm going to take my ruler and just go from this line to this line across to make my checkerboard ceiling. 1, 2, 3. Okay. So now I have my checkerboard ceiling. That's done. The next thing I'm going to do is draw my floor. So this time I am going to go to the corner of my piece. I'm going to go from the corner of this box all the way over here to the corner, and I'm just going to go all the way down to the corner. So from the corner of my box to the corner of the paper, and then I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. Corner of my box to the corner of the paper. Okay, there we go. All right, so I have my roof, I have my floor, okay? I've got my 1 point perspective. Now we're gonna draw the couch that sits in the center of the floor. So to do that, I'm going to go anywhere in here and I'm gonna line my ruler up about 1.5 inches down. I'm gonna line it up at the 1 inch mark and I'm gonna go from the start of my ruler to the 2, okay? So I've got 1 inch here and 1 inch here. This is the top of my bench. And then I'm going to just draw, okay, I'm gonna do a line on the diagonal, making sure I go to this. That's a little too wide, so maybe I'll just go here, that. I'll go down a little bit to the 2 inch mark, so I do 2 inches on each side. Okay, so I have my start of my bench, and then I'm gonna connect the two like that. And now I can erase that center part as I do not need it. And then I draw a little tiny rectangle, very thin rectangle at the bottom of my box. Go down, across, this, across like this, okay? Again, erase this line, and now I'm just gonna draw my 2 little half circles here, and that's going to be the feet of my bench. Now, because this is closer to the center point, I'm gonna put buttons because it's gonna be a tufted couch. The buttons are gonna start off smaller, then medium, then large. And I want my center buttons first because I have this kind of remnant of my center line. So I'm gonna do a very small line here, and then a little bit of a bigger line here, and then a bigger circle there. So right down in this line. keeping that 1 point perspective. Then here, tiny button, medium-sized button, big button, tiny button, medium-sized button, big button. All the way across. And now I have my couch. All right, the real part of this piece that's incredibly important is the pictures on the side. So I'm gonna have 2 pictures on this side and 2 pictures on this side. So to do that, this time I am gonna angle up to the corner. So I go from the corner of the box to the corner of my paper, but I don't want to connect them this time. So my first one is gonna be 2 inches for the top. So I went from the 1 inch mark to the 2. And my second picture is smaller, so I'm just gonna go from the 3 to the 4. So 1 to 2, this is 2 inches, this is 1 inch, okay? And now I'm gonna go and draw my lines down. This one, you just kind of eyeball. I'm gonna leave a little room. So see 5 inches roughly on that one. I'm gonna imagine that this painting is coming off of the wall because I went right to the corner. And then I'm just gonna finish this guy by mirroring the angle here. Okay, just mirror that angle. There you go. Then I'm gonna go up and down. Give my approximate, okay, that looks right. And then, well, I may need to cut it just a little. That's okay, that's what an eraser's for. Okay, go up, erase that. So this line should look continuous all the way across, and then my up and down part. Okay, good. There you go. All right, so now I've got my 2 sides. I'm gonna erase my inside lines. Again, remember that's why it's so important to draw them really, 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 really faint. Okay. Now I'm gonna go over to this side. Remember, I'm gonna do the exact same thing. So get to my angle. I'm gonna go from 4 to 2 here, and I'm gonna make this one 1 inch. Okay. And then I'm gonna go up and down, leaving some room at the bottom. And along the bottom part. Okay. I'm gonna go up into the corner here like that. Okay, perfect. And then erase this center line. And erase the lines, the very faint lines inside the pictures. And now I am done. So that's pretty much it from a perspective standpoint. It's actually pretty simple. So the next thing I'm gonna do is I'm going to begin to add some details. So the first 2 colors that I'm gonna need are black and brown. Those are the first 2 markers that I'm going to use. And the first thing I'm gonna do is outline the frames of my paintings that are hanging on the wall. And all I'm gonna do is just freehand with a marker. You can use colored pencils or crayons for this. There's really no reason you have to use marker. I just like the way it looks because it's very bold, so I'm gonna go all the way across all of my frames. Just freehanding down the line. You can also use the ruler if you want to. That's totally fine. Okay. All right. So now I've got that framed out. And then I'm gonna go ahead and trace over all of my lines with my black because we really want this to pop. So I'm just gonna freehand trace my lines. right? And then the last thing is going to be my buttons. Give it that tufted look. Just faintly outline this guy. I'm not going to press as hard because I want it to look thinner. Okay. Okay, so that's my outline for that. So now you're going to go ahead and choose. You should have 5 separate art pieces. I am going to create a tiny little smaller art piece in the center by just drawing a square or a rectangular shape if you want to do a little bit of a rectangle in here. And this is where I drew my Jen Stark originally. Okay, so I've got that piece. Now I have 5 distinct pieces. So I'm gonna actually start with my ceiling because that's kind of the easiest thing to draw. I'm gonna start and I'm gonna make it purple. Remember, this is checkerboard, and make it funky, make it bright. So I'm gonna start out by drawing this line, every other in purple, and then next to it in the repeating pattern of that checkerboard. This is a lot like the project we did the last time. Okay, across there. All right, so now I have a colored ceiling. And then let's do our Jen Stark in the center. Again, you guys can choose. I'm gonna start with my squiggle and go in with a better squiggle and then an outer one. Remember just how we did this guy. And then maybe I'll do one off to the side here. Okay, and then I come around like that, and now I've got my Jen Stark. Maybe I add one more layer because I want to kind of make this really funky drippy. Okay, so that's going to be my Jen Stark. I've got my couch, and then you're going to decide what you're going to do in your alternate paintings. Maybe this guy is going to look a lot like the drawing that you just did with the lines. Okay, remember we're going to curve in one direction, and then we curve in the other direction. And then we curve back in this direction. Okay, so maybe we have a picture that looks like that. I had a rainbow. I'm going to do polka dots again on this one. So I think they're pretty. You could turn these into planets. This could be a space-themed billboard or picture. You know, art for movies is also art. Advertisements is also art. So if you want to draw, if you have a comic book that you like, that you want to put on here, you could do that. Maybe you're really into Marvel comics. You can put, you know, something, if you have a Fortnite character that you like, you could put that in there because, again, all of that is art. Digital art is art too. So add into these 5 sections something that is meaningful to you. If you want to put your name on there, you can also do that. Okay. All right. And then for this one, I did a Mondrian inspired art piece. He was an artist in the 1960s, did very modular, kind of funky art. It was all squares. Pretty easy to draw, which is kind of cool. So just quickly mock up some quick Mondrian. So that looks a lot like him. And then obviously in the final one, just choose. I'll do, let's do a rainbow. We've drawn our ceiling, we've drawn our 5. We're gonna go ahead and color those in. We're gonna go ahead and color our couch in, and the very last thing we're gonna do is add some floor tiles or wooden floorboards. I'm gonna keep that center piece here, that center line, 1, 2, right down there, and add one more over here. And that is it. What is left will be colored in. Again, choosing your artwork, changing it up every single time. Crayons, colored pencils, markers, however intricate or complicated you want to make it. You can outline it. On my final, I added some lighting in there. You can color the walls if you want to. Again, scale this up or down depending on your skill level. So you could make this as complicated as you want. In the PowerPoint presentation, I will give you some samples of both scaled up versions and scaled down versions. Okay, enjoy your art.